Welcome to Inspired Living with Mark and Kim. Every Wednesday, Mark and Kim, along with their special guests, will explore thought-provoking topics and ideas that promote creativity, self-help, healing, happiness, and well-being to inspire you on your spiritual journey. Each week, Mark and Kim will discuss different paths to achieving a more spiritual, balanced, happy, and healthy lifestyle. Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience, and all things spiritual. Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. Mark and Kim are tested, certified, and professional spiritual mediums, metaphysical teachers, healers, and spiritual advisors with their own individual spiritual practices in Seattle, Washington, and Los Angeles, California. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
Ernest Holmes once said, "Our time should be devoted to knowing the truth that sets humanity free from the problem of ignorance. That truth which alone can bring enlightenment to the world, that war should cease, that people should live together in harmony because they have recognized the divinity within each other." And that's Ernest Holmes. And today it's Inspired Living Radio with Mark and Kim here on OMTimes. Hello, Inspired listeners all around the world. Thank you so much for joining in another Wisdom Wednesday live. I'm looking forward to our guest today. Very interesting stuff. I just put out a Instagram video out on the Inspired Living Radio Facebook page. If you do want to go check that out, we're going to be talking about the future and the mindfulness of the future and living in a future science world. So this is going to be a fun show. It's going to go by really quick. So just wanted to say thank you again for listening in. This is Mark Lanehart, the Intuitive Prospector. I am going to be your host today. Kim Falcon, founder of Love First in Richmond, Virginia, is actually traveling on the road. I think she's on an airplane as we are live right now. She is heading up to New Jersey for a workshop and her continued journey of learning and exploring and transforming and the beautiful work that she does. If you want to work with Kim and if you're in the Virginia area, you can find her at lovefirst.info. Make sure to check her out. You can also find her on Best American Psychics. She's one of my colleagues on Best American Psychics and Best Psychic Directory. Kim, we miss you, and we'll have you back next week, as I will be traveling next week as I'm heading for Disney World and the Magic Kingdom, so going to have a lot of fun. But if you want to call into the live show, we are taking calls today. And I'm going to give that number out here in just a second here. But also want to let you know that you can engage with the live show right now. If you head over to our Facebook page, Inspired Living Radio, you can ask to join the community of inspired listeners. We're well over 1,000 inspired listeners all around the world. You can join. You can post your question there, and we'll be monitoring that. You can also now call in. If you're in the United States, you can call into our live number at 1-202-570-7057. That's also posted on our Facebook page. You can also find Inspired Living Radio now on Twitter and Instagram at the handle Inspired For Us. That's the number 4. You can also follow us on Google Plus Communities under Inspired Living with Mark and Kim. And if you missed the live show every Wisdom Wednesday at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, you can catch all the encore shows of Inspired Living Radio over on iTunes, YouTube, Podbean, SoundCloud, marklanehart.com, and OMTimes Radio Archives. We have over 75 shows now. We're heading for the big 100 for Inspired Living Radio over the last few years, and it's been a lot of fun. Our positive affirmation for the month of March, I can't believe that March is almost over. It's the first week of spring, so happy spring to you. I hope that you're getting out in nature. Nature is our greatest teacher. And the positive affirmation for this month is, I am now creating my life exactly as I want it. I am now creating my life exactly as I want it, and that is your Inspired Living Radio positive affirmation for the month of March. I want to let you know I do have a few upcoming events as well. Here, if you're in the Pacific Northwest of Seattle, Washington, we have our first spiritual hike on April Fool's Day. It's not a joke. We're actually getting out and doing a hike. If you want to learn more about the events that I'm doing on hikes, workshops, on public demonstrations of mediumship, head over to marklanehart.com. You can also do an internet search for the Intuitive Prospector. Several ways to find me, and I'll also be doing a demonstration on April 7th up in Arlington, Washington, called To Where You Are, an evening with loved ones in spirit. And then on April 8th, we're going to be doing a fun 4-hour workshop with one of my colleagues from Canada. She's coming down to join me. We're going to be doing Whispers from the Other Side. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope that you'll join us up in Arlington, Washington, April 7th and 8th, or if you want to get out in nature and go on a hike with me on April 1st, just head over to marklanehart.com. Okay. So, like I said, this show is going to cruise by. I have so many questions for this guest. Fascinating. They call him... let's see, he's actually got a nickname, the Human from the Future, so we're going to talk about that. His name is Elliott Maynard. He's got a Ph.D., and he is a leading-edge consciousness scientist and conceptual designer. His background spans the fields of zoology, coral reef ecology, oceanography, tropical rainforest biology. He earned his Ph.D. in consciousness research and served on the faculties of Adelphi University and Dowling College in New York. He is also a certified professional consultant to management, CPCM. He's also the founder and president of Arcos Cielos Foundation. I hope I'm saying that right there in Sedona, Arizona. And he's been active with the World Future Society, the Aerospace Technology Working Group, and the London-based Humanitad International. His fourth and newest book, called Brave New Mind, Living a Future Science World, presents his new master paradigm for personal and planetary transformation. In addition to his work as a futurist, lecturer, author, educator, and global ecologist, Elliott is an accomplished artist, sculptor, musician, underwater photography, and documentary film producer, and he has been referred to by some of his colleagues as the Human from the Future. Elliott, welcome to Inspired Living Radio.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and thank you to our listeners also.
Well, you, my friend, are a prospector after my own heart, just for the fact you have done so much in your life and you've experienced so many different things. I'm just inspired just on all of the different education background that you had, underwater photography, you're writing a book. I'm still just trying to finish my first book, let alone a fourth book. But good for you in getting out in the world and sharing your knowledge. Let's talk about your new book and why you are called the Human from the Future. And just kind of introduce yourself to our inspired listeners all around the world.
Well, thank you. I decided after years of looking through metaphysical and historical writings, et cetera, that we were continuing the same old cycles of kill or be killed, survival of the fittest, and the rise and fall of empires, nations, the clearing of forests for war machines, ships, and cathedrals, et cetera. So instead of revolution, where you have a change in government, but heads roll, and it's very bloody, and you get a new government rising to power, and they become more or less ingrown like governments do, et cetera. So I said, we need a new operating system, just like we have with the Mac and the PC computers. So I decided to lay out a new operating system for planet Earth, and humans, since the two are really inseparable, and we need to understand this. This is our spaceship, Earth, and we need to take care of it and take care of our global commons. Now, basically, what it involves is 25 keys or pathways or focal points or facets of a crystal, which look at this master paradigm, and this master paradigm sources from what I like to call a quantum information field. And to get to this point, now that the spiritual vibration has gotten to the higher levels, we don't need to live in a cave anymore for 30 years, and we can move into a meditative state in 5 minutes or 5 or 10 minutes, those of us that have been working at this. And so think of a reel-to-reel tape deck, which is linear, and you roll it forward and backwards on the timeline to get it to a particular song or whatever you're looking for. Now, with a compact disc, which is quantum, the laser goes directly to the information point that you need to access. The other thing is that when you exist in this state, this 0 point, this zone, as football players like to call it, when everything is functioning perfectly, you get a congruence, a commonality, a resonance of that team, and they're functioning somewhat greater than the whole. That's synergy. And so moving into this future is very simple, because at this 0 point, the past, the present, and the future coexist. And if we can stay there, and whether we're doing needlepoint or meditation or anything you can think of, when we're in that 0 point, we kind of osmotically get the future because we're already there. And so some of it trickles down into a conscious mind later on when we need it.
Very interesting. I like the you've coined a new operating system for the human race. And I know exactly what you're talking about being in the zone. My graduate studies were in sports medicine and human performance, and we studied that concept of being in the zone for the professional athlete and that alignment, that exactly what you're talking about. But I love a new operating system for the human race, because that's what we need. And that's why I opened up with Ernest Holmes talking about, the truth that sets humanity free from the problem of ignorance and being in that cave that you talked about. So, Dr. Maynard, we're going to be going to our first break here, and if you want to learn more about Dr. Elliott Maynard and the awesome work that he's doing, head over to our Facebook page. We put his website directly on the Facebook page, Inspired Living Radio, and a direct link. You can follow him also on his Facebook page at Elliott Maynard. And there's the whistling. We're going to head to our first break of the show, and I just want to give a shout-out real quick to the people in London, the City of London, my friends and colleagues in London with the Terrorist Act that just took place today. We're thinking of you. Stay safe, love and light, and we'll be back here on Inspired Living Radio in 2 minutes.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Have you been searching for a perspective beyond the mainstream? Check it out. Join your hosts Cielito Pascual and Diana Gold Holland on Share International Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. You can also find us at shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for.
Are you seeking answers to life questions? Would you like to connect to a departed loved one? Are you suffering from pain, stress, or anxiety? Kimberly Thalkin is a tested, certified, and professional psychic, spiritual medium, energy healer, hypnotherapist, and the founder of Love First, where life transformations happen. Love First services support, guide, and empower individuals by connecting them to their highest potential to live a healthier, joyful, and meaningful life that's filled with purpose. All services can be done by phone, Skype, or in person in Encino, California. Please visit lovefirst.info. That's LOVEFIRST.info for more information.
There are many sounds in your daily life. Ones that make you smile. Ones that help you relax. And there are some sounds that can help save lives. Wireless emergency alerts, now on many mobile devices, use a unique sound and vibration to bring you critical information about emergencies in your area. With updates from local sources you know and trust, you can be in the know wherever you are. Learn more at ready.gov/alerts. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hey, Inspired listeners, welcome back. You are listening to Inspired Living Radio here on OMTimes. Our very special guest today, Dr. Elliott Maynard, his new book, Brave New Mind, Living in a Future Science World. I like that we, right before the break, we were talking about your phrase that you coined, a new operating system for the human race. So how does the future science technology assist in upgrading our mind and what you call a new man, or homo novus? Novus? Am I saying that right?
Novus.
Novus?
Novus is Latin for new, or Greek for new.
Okay.
New human. The evolved human. One philosopher once said that we are not just human beings, we are humans becoming. So that's kind of a nice little piece of candy to put up there. Anyway.
Yeah, it is. I like that.
Yes. Well, it's very interesting what happens. A certain percentage of I've been reading a lot of the newest literature, and I've found that apparently we've reached a critical mass on the light side versus the dark side, the negative forces. This is the physical realm, and we're all being tempered, as you know. And what has happened, apparently, is that we've gone over the hump so that the light is beginning to dominate, and consequently the remnants of the negative forces are pushing back, and you're getting this turmoil. And apparently things are going along well, and those of us who have kept rather quiet, not been reactive, and gotten caught in the drama of the news and everything that's going on, have been putting light, left light out to enlighten the rest of society. A major portion will continue ahead, and then another large portion will slip down under the waves with the Titanic because they're clinging to the old industrial age paradigms. And this takes a great deal of courage. It's a fact. It's been proven that a fairly large percentage of people are afraid of change. They have a fear and afraid of moving from their comfort zone. And this is why you see these rather strange and ludicrous reactions from supposedly intelligent people in politics. And we have it in the UK, and we have it in America, certainly. It's the latest circus. And what one needs to do is just stand back. We used to call it the helicopter viewpoint, where you rise yourself above the battlefield and look down.
Sure. So you talk about opening Pandora's box, which, entails accepting responsibility for dealing with the gifts inside, and, especially what's going on in the world today. I mean, we just saw the terrorist attack that just took place in London. London holds a very special place in my heart. I go over every year to study over there, and, just the craziness of the world. And you talked about, the turtle, even the turtle will not get ahead unless he sticks his neck out, I guess. And, talking about the gifts that are inside, that with any pioneering effort, we have to share of detractors and unintended consequences. Do you feel like this is all taking place because we're moving towards this big quantum shift, this paradigm shift for a future that's going to be more like a future that's worth peace and without war and unity and community?
Yes, by all indications it's coming, and by all indications we have, the change masters and the people have just, put their heads down and pulled their heads in and put light on the sources of conflict. There is something in my books I write about which is called invincible defense technology. It's a big word, but the term was invented by physicist and professor, Ph.D., Dr. John Hagelin. And he proved, just as an example, they took a fairly large population of people in the hospitals, and they started a whole multi-denominational group. They were Catholics and Jewish people and Islamics, and everyone just focusing on the half of the patients that were so-called prayed for or focused on and put light on. The other half was the control group, and they got very positive statistics that the ones that were focused on and prayed for healed faster, they had much better recovery from surgery, etc. Now, the importance of this is that we find if you have meditational groups who are coherent, they're more powerful. And this also applies to groups, electronic forums like we're having right now. If we start putting our attention on the roots of the conflict, this is beyond conflict resolution, it's conflict prevention. We can kind of dissolve the whole at the quantum level reasons for the conflict that takes place, and things settle down. And there's a whole military group in Ecuador of the military militia there that is training meditation to help soldiers on the battlefield make better decisions and also reduce the conflict, the cause of the conflict. That's a real warrior.
Yeah, exactly. The power of meditation. I mean, it what put me on this path to even be talking to you today on this radio show was the power of meditation and to go within to find the answers that I'm looking for. So, as we shift into this quantum mind that you're talking about, I mean, I've always been fascinated with quantum entanglement, just at the cellular level and how we just function from a cellular level. Just fascinating stuff. We could talk hours about quantum mechanics, quantum entanglement, quantum mind. In your book, you talk about who and what we are becoming and how this is important to the ultimate survival of humans and planet Earth. And I have to say, this is a time where I'm very concerned about our planet, what's going on around the world, all the different changes, the extinction rate, the climate changing. Can we talk a little bit about that? That chapter in your book.
Yes. I guess one important thing for us to realize, especially those of us that love nature and love the earth and love to reconnect with it. I mean, people will drive for 2 hours to just go to the beach and take the family there, if you think about this. So this, with the urbanization and all of the high tech, people have distanced themselves from the natural energies, and this is our nest, this is our real home, and so we need to change in the sense that we need to start being conscious. In other words, you had Leonardo da Vinci, the great masters like this, and whether or not they were consciously getting information from the higher realms or not, were not conscious of it, it was very dangerous to talk about this at the time. Of course, the church was actually, the church had its own armies and was funding certain, they were patrons to the arts, so you had to be very careful. Now, the thing now is that to do this consciously, and we're taught, it's beaten into our brains that we should never believe anything we can't prove to be true. So this usually involves statistics and all of this, and we get so involved in the process. If we just flick a little switch so that we don't disbelieve anything we can't prove to be untrue, we open our minds and say, yeah, I'll give it a shot. What have I got to lose? There's a fear in there, but that fear can be overcome if you just kind of focus on it in a minute or two and sort of give it positive energy or love or whatever you want to call it. That will dissolve and you can move into the future. And when you do this, I can guarantee that anyone's life will change in ways they could never imagine, probably in their former linear mode. Yeah,
and this our positive affirmation for the month of March ties into this subject very well, because it says, I'm now creating my life exactly as I want it. And that life that you want starts with the mindset. It starts with your thoughts that, turn into your words, and your words then turn into your actions, and your actions turn into your behavior, and so on and so forth. So I think the power of consciousness, the power of mindfulness, the power of meditation, and, one of the things that you talked about in the book is by embracing this new mindset, we can work collectively to birth a new era of effective fixes for a world in which our established institutions are teetering on the brink of collapse, are already broken. And we see this all over the world. And, that's why Kim and myself are doing this Inspired Living Radio, is to create a community where like-minded people can really make a change. And, we talk about, wanting to change the world, but we have to start with ourselves first. And again, if you want to check out Dr. Elliott Maynard's book, Brave New Mind, Living in a Future Science World, where are some of the best sites for them to actually go get this book?
That's on Amazon. Also in my previous book, Transforming the Global Biosphere, 12 Futuristic Strategies. That is a sort of a textbook on global ecology, but it's very easy to read. I distilled it down so that it could actually be used in high schools or for lifelong learning. And the concepts involve the modern, right now, the highest problems we have with our general planetary ecology and how we can solve them. And your statement on how we could use so-called nonlinear technology, I'll give you a quick example. Many professional healers, and they're credentialed healers in all the states and most parts of the world, will come and actually assist you. And I've always urged people in the past to go and get help from a professional if they're interested in learning how to do remote viewing or healing or any other sort of thing like this.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Facilitation is very important, and again, it's done without judgment and conflict. And judgment is one of the problems we have. So I'll get on that.
Yeah, judgment is a big problem we have. So let's hold that thought. When we come back from our second break, let's get into how to shift from linear to nonlinear quantum thinking mode and use some examples. You're listening to Inspired Living Radio here on OMTimes. Stick around. We're coming back in 2 minutes.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Have you wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
One planet, 7.3 billion people, only one you. Life offers us many opportunities and learning experiences. Are you ready to explore and discover this beautiful planet, the life and energy all around us, the spiritual world, and what is unseen, along with your own personal soul adventure? Mark Lanehart, the intuitive prospector, is the spiritual connection you have been prospecting for. Internationally known as a tested and professional clairvoyant medium and spiritual advisor, Mark's work as a metaphysical teacher, medical instructor, radio show host, inspirational writer, and hiking guide are here to help you on a journey of self-discovery, healing, inspiration, education, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness. Dare to dream. Dare to explore. Dare to live. For more information on Mark's spiritual practice in Seattle, Washington, please visit marklanehart.com or internet search The Intuitive Prospector.
America's service members and veterans are strong, forged out of bravery, sacrifice, and duty. Sometimes reaching out for help can be the most challenging and worthwhile mission of all. When you recognize something isn't right, make the call to the Veterans Crisis Line or Military Crisis Line. Dial 1-800-273-8255 and press 1.
And welcome back to Inspired Living with Mark and Kim here on OMTimes. This is Mark Lanehart, the Intuitive Prospector, riding solo today as Kim is off having a personal soul adventure and attending a workshop in New Jersey. Kim, we hope that you are having fun. We look forward to having you back next week. We're going to have an exciting guest next week as well. We have all these guests coming up on Inspired Living Radio, so you guys will want to get on the Facebook page and check out the upcoming calendar of awesome guests that we're going to have. You can also call into the live call-in line right now at 1-202-570-7057. Love to have you call in and chat with us if you've got a question about living a future science world, about mindfulness, meditation, whatever's on your mind today. Go ahead and give us a call or post your question on our Inspired Living Radio Facebook page. And for our inspired listeners out there, I want to let you know today, after this live show is over, I will be teaching over on the OMTimes Expert Learning Platform. We're doing a intuition tune-up course for an hour, so you can go to learnitlive.com or OMTimes Expert Learning Platform to get registered for that class. It will be live and recorded, and I've got a whole library of classes that you can participate in. I'd love to have you go prospecting with me on getting your intuition tune-up, because it is spring and it's time to get out in nature and get into the intuition and the consciousness and the mindset. So, Dr. Maynard, right when we got into break there, we were talking about just the new mindset and the linear and nonlinear quantum thinking. For our inspired listeners out there who might not know what you mean on linear and nonlinear thinking, could you break that down into layman's terms?
Right. Again, I use the reel tape deck where you go back and forth on the timeline to go to a specific musical cut or a piece of information, and the quantum version of that is the compact disc, and the laser goes directly to the point of the question that was asked to provide a certain point of information. And can I ask you a question? Are your sponsors FEMA and Veterans Administration? Am I getting this correctly?
For Inspired Living Radio?
Yes.
No, not yet.Maybe in the future. Maybe you're giving us a future glimpse
that's what
of.
I was hearing, and I said, "My God, we've had a miracle occur." Because in my world, I would have a whole, and this would be done very quietly, a whole psychic, let's say, team that could be put together, via phone, etc., secure communication to advise our government. We're not there yet, but we will probably get there in fairly short order, because things we can talk about today, 2 decades ago, were not, you couldn't talk about spiritual healing. A medical community, they're doing it now, and other communities too. So that's quite an interesting piece of evolution. Now, with regard to the psychic or intuitive senses, however you want to look at them, for actually thousands of years, millennia, it's been a major survival mechanism for us. And with the invention of the Gutenberg press and mass media, pretty much, you now have, we had cave paintings from mass media probably before that, but now we have something new. We have these global radio shows working in the global mind field. It used to be called the global brain, if you remember that. It's expanded fractally or virally, if you want to look at it that way. And so we are forming a coherent electronic interface between the electronic media and the biological entities. And this, when you do this, and especially when you do it consciously, this gives you an extra boost. And things, the energy, it creates a coherent positive energy bank which will serve as an anchor for the transformation that is occurring now and allow it to happen more easily, just like a catalyst in some senses.
Interesting. Yeah, just even with technology, where I've seen, I just actually watched an episode on the 3D printing and how the technology is building houses with a 3D printer, and the robotics that are taking place, and that interface of technology and us as humans, and so you see the future man, or the Homo novus, being more integrated with technology, more maybe wired in for the future. Is that kind of what you see for our future?
I think that's inevitable, essentially, that it's coming to that, and it's coming to the point where people can essentially, live a wired life. Now, I used to be skeptical about this business of technology overtaking us, but I am no more, because when I think of artificial intelligence as becoming intelligent enough to start to recreate themselves and do self-reflexive operations like its self-awareness, then we may have problems. We may have problems, because look at the human condition, a whole part of it. And if a couple flew in on the spaceship from another enlightened civilization, I often wonder what they would think of some of the messes that are going on, with heads still being lopped off. My God, we're still in the dark ages in certain places in the world, and this is the phoenix rising, and we're here to witness this. It's not always pleasant. It's not usually pleasant, but if people work together, it's going to be a really, really joyous kind of occasion. And I say this because when each one of us gains knowledge, you mentioned this before, we are kind of compelled to share it. And if we want to continue evolving, we do share it. Whereas I used to be more closed about my personal stories, I now tell them so that other people, if I can help one person move ahead and resolve a problem, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, and we're storytellers, and we're trying to get to that place of, gaining education and knowledge so we can evolve, which, someday will take us to a form of enlightenment, I hope. But you're right. I mean, if we were to use that helicopter example that you used, I use the 30,000-foot perception of, how peaceful the Earth looks until you get closer to it. If you're on the International Space Station, it looks great and peaceful and quiet. You drop down into the atmosphere and come down into the land masses, and there's just a lot of chaos all over the world, including what's going on in London today with terrorist acts. And, it's just I hope that we, the mindset, the global consciousness, technology is also a positive in the fact that it's bringing a lot of us together to share, information and news. And you're right. I hope that, the movies like Terminator, they don't become, technology, artificial intelligence doesn't become self-aware, because if it does, we are in trouble. And, I also think in my lifetime that we'll have that announcement of first contact to realize that we're not alone in the universe, and that might also help with our evolution process. I mean, just a few weeks ago, NASA announced the discovery of a full planetary system, 7 planets with 3 in the habitable zone that can contain life. And how would that be to have first contact that changes religion, philosophy, mindset, consciousness? That would be an amazing thing. And I do believe from a psychic level that we will see that within my lifetime. So in the next 40, 50 years, however long I'm going to be on this planet. So let's talk about how conventional science has already laid that groundwork for the non-local consciousness effect, and how we can develop entirely new fields of science, the arts, medicine, advanced technology, and eventually global peace.
Well, our devices that were invented maybe 100 years ago or more, and I'm speaking of technologies such as radionics, which is credentialed in the UK. It was driven underground for a while in the U.S. because Dr. Abrams, who had actually using a Tesla technology device was healing patients that the conventional doctors had given up on, and so the AMA in their infinite wisdom banned it, and of course it just went underground, and these technologies were normally used for healing, but I speak about the possibility of creating a global healing center, which is essentially used electronic devices, and there are many of them out there. They're tested and available, and very experienced and, most importantly, ethical people to help use this technology to calm the global hotspots, especially, and Earth in general, and to mitigate the wild fluctuations in the weather that have been occurring. Because, you know, our scientists have a resemblance to the clergy of the old times we talk about that argue forever how many angels can stand on the head of the pin. Just look at some of our scientific people. They love to get arguing about the process rather than getting on with what is necessary to become part of the solution instead of arguing about the problem. This is just a part of the human condition.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, as far as we move into the future, where do you see the arts, science as a whole, in how far does your book look out as far as like a forecast on the future? Because you are called the man from the future, so I'm just curious what that looks like.
Well, I actually address psychic technologies and honor them, and as they are so important to our survival and have kind of been buried. Our academic institutions initially were pretty harsh and did everything they could to close the doors on those things. Things like the giant races of giants that existed. The evidence is everywhere. I was skeptical of this 2 years ago, and I started researching it. And sadly, the archaeologists from the Smithsonian and other places took these bones that were found. They were legitimate, and they hid them away.
Wow. All right, guys, we're in our last break. Stick around. We're going to come back. We're going to be talking about Earth energies, interspecies communication, psychic technology, TELSA technology, weather modification, all good stuff. We'll be back in 2 minutes here on Inspired Living Radio.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanitad Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Join me, Tammy Adams, intuitive life coach and spiritual healer, for my new show, Karma Talk. Learn how to get rid of your karma so that you can start living the life you are meant to live. I am not going to tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. Join me on Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time for Karma Talk on OMTime Radio.
I'm Fidel Nsombo. I was born in a city called Bukavu in the Congo. We were a loving family, and then, boom, everything that I had disappeared in a single day. People think that when you are a refugee and they resettle you to America, and all your problems are done. They don't understand that that's the beginning of everything. I was not born a refugee. I was made one.
It's time we welcome refugee families with open arms. Learn more at embracerefugees.org, brought to you by the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Inspired Living Radio. Our very special guest, Dr. Elliott Maynard, talking about his new book, Brave New Mind, Living in a Future Science World. Great stuff. The new operating system for the human race and where we're going into the future. So, Dr. Maynard, let's pick up. We were going right into the break there when you were talking about the forecast of psychic technologies. You were talking a little bit about the Tesla technologies and the future of what the future holds for us.
Yes, as far as there's a chapter, one of the 25 points that are marked in this book, the 25 aspects, are ET and, ET communication and ET UFOs, I call it, essentially. And the evidence is absolutely overwhelming if you start referencing some of these things. In other words, we've got so much evidence, including military records of ET forces actually shutting down certain nuclear facilities. I've talked in person with people from the who were in the U.S. Missile Defense Command and NASA and engineers, et cetera. And also I have a chapter on channeling as a legitimate resource. And this is very interesting when you approach it as a scientist and start asking the sources questions, and they come up with answers that essentially you just couldn't make up if you are truly listening to these sources. And to one little interesting sidelight, I went to a channeling session. I used to cross-reference these and meet the channelers and et cetera, by Daryl Anka, who is known as Bashar worldwide. And I asked a question about the ETs and all of this and the Enlightenment. I told him I was writing a book and I needed some ideas. And he said, part of his reply said, if we took a person from this room and dropped them into a bar or restaurant 100 years ago in, say, in England or America, they would appear to be glowing because of the difference in how the energy has come up since that time. I thought that was kind of interesting. And now psychic people, professionals like yourself, can check these things out. You see, so we have the linear aspect for the doubters too.
Yeah, that's interesting to think of it from an energy perspective. Because I always, go back to Nikola Tesla talked about if you want to unlock the secrets of the universe, then you think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And a lot of what I do is based on a lot of the studies and the mentoring and the learning that I do is based on energy. And yeah, with all the Wi-Fi and the technology, that would be interesting to see what somebody 100 years in the future, if they came back to our time, what they would look like. And it's just a matter of time before the ET, alien, first contact disclosures are released. There's just so much video out there and so much connectivity around the world that it's just a matter of time. And for us to think that we're the only, living species in a galaxy mathematically uncomprehended is just either naive or arrogant. I'm not sure which, but I think it's just a matter of time. We did have a guest on a few weeks ago that was actually a retired FBI agent, and he was actually disclosing some of the real X-files of what he worked on. And one of the memos, that's one of the most downloaded memos, talks about the ET connection, the ET communications that's been taking place for several years. So just a matter of time. And I think it's I think it would be a great thing and part of our evolution if they do show up to be our friends versus take our resources. I think of Stephen Hawkins when he talks about, we've got a 50-50 shot here, so of first contact, if they're hostile or if they're of peace and of a higher evolved race here. So another thing, as we kind of wrap up the show here, it's amazing how quick the show goes by when you get into these very interesting topics. But I wanted to ask you about the educational system that prepares our youth to operate effectively, not just now in the present, but future realities. I was actually listening to a friend's podcast, his first radio show today on Education 101, and he talked about how do we prepare our children for a future that we don't necessarily understand. So let's talk about the educational system and what we can do to help the children that are up and coming in this fast crazy, chaotic world of ours for a future that they can fit into and feel comfortable with.
Yes, well, I have one of the aspects, the facets of that crystal is future science education, and this is essentially a grid that we put on the educational system that goes from kindergarten to lifelong learning, and children are, from their first experiences in learning, they learn about things that are most important for the future or for living in the real reality show. They learn how to have manners, how to present themselves properly. And if you don't think this is important, look at some of the kids in school. How to create parent and teacher wisdom councils to help with the schools. And instead of having these norms, these statistical norms, each individual develops from their center and gets support from the school and their mentors and other students and teachers and parents. And so we celebrate the psychic intuitive senses, and then you can bring them into business, into if you're having a family, into family matters, and all of these things, and it creates the future human, Homo novus, that way with a whole new understanding. And if you don't think it's important in business, if you look really well, you will see that the Japanese, among others, have garnered up some of the best psychics and keep them there to help protect their government.
Yeah, and I know that the psychic and intuition, whatever you want to refer to, using of the soul energy, it's been used in marketing. It's been used in, like you said, in the business aspects of how to market something, when to market, not when to market, when to create a new piece of technology. So I agree with you. I think the intuitiveness and the psychic abilities will continue to grow. I didn't see myself doing this work, to be honest with you, but it was after a paradigm shift of my own soul adventure that put me on this path to really tune in to what is unseen and felt. And I think the children that are up and coming are very intuitive, are very in tune with not just Mother Earth and community, don't really care about the 9-to-5 job and making all this money. They want to, do something that makes a difference, especially the millenniums. The millennium generation right now is very about just, being connected and making a change without being paid a lot of money. So, that's very interesting on the education system. A lot of focus, too, on, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, because a lot of the jobs of the future will be based on pretty much taking care of the robots. I keep seeing a lot of information about the jobs that are disappearing are not because they're going overseas, that they're just actually because everything is technology and automation and robotics. And the future will be code writing, computer science, taking care of the robots that are actually now creating a lot of the cars, for example. That's a good example of robotics in action. And, I'm sure eventually the barista at the Starbucks will serve me up a coffee and it'll be a robot, so.
Well, you laugh about that, but I traveled around the world with a famous rock group, and I remember in the first class lounge in Tokyo, they actually have a robot that pours beer down the side of a glass. It tilts the glass and everything. The Japanese calculated this very, very authentically. Yes, and one of the most important things, and our government can do this, our leaders, instead of just creating, you always try to create win-win situations when you make a business deal or an exchange, even just personal exchange, corporate sort of deal. But think of, in the quantum realm, you could create a win to the X power, which could just keep going and going like the fractal energizer bunny into the cosmos, out there. The way the sun
just
expands.
Keeps going and going and going. Yeah, it's exciting times, and I think we're going to see a lot of changes within the next few years, and it doesn't surprise me that in Japan that they have a robot. It's just I laugh because I always just think that Star Trek, it's science fiction is becoming science fact, and a lot what we saw in Star Trek, holodecks and robots. And I have the new Alexa from Amazon that I can go down and talk to it, and it'll tell me the weather, it'll tell me a joke, it'll play my favorite music. It's very I just never thought I'd see it as soon as we're seeing it now. So a couple questions for you before we end the show. I like just to see who inspires you, and what book are you currently reading that you might want to share with our inspired listeners.
Actually, I'm reading. I've been reading a book about the one that was written about the president's agenda. I think the author is Horowitz, and I've got a spiritual overlay of that, which is very interesting. And I don't have the book right at hand, so I can't give you the term. But this is all according to plan, and there's no sense. When you study this, you realize there's no sense in being uneasy or nervous about it. You simply can work on your balance and stay with people of like mind as much as possible. This creates the coherence, and from coherence and a common ground, tremendous changes can be affected and catalyzed. And that's really what these people used to be called the cultural creatives. This term was invented back 20 years ago. But it's the people that sit around and just quietly put light, unconditional positive energy on people and places to help. And this is what it's going to cause the whole, they call it a transfiguration, actually, that's happening now.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I think we leave it there, and I would love to have you back on Inspired Living Radio if you're up for it. Again, Dr. Elliott Maynard, his new book, Brave New Mind, Living in a Future Science World. Thank you so much, Dr. Maynard, for coming on and sharing your knowledge and information and wisdom with us.
Thank you very much.
Again, I want to have you back. And next week, we're going to have Blake Bauer, international teacher, speaker, and author, talking about Not One to Stop Us. Join us next Wednesday at 12 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, Wireless Radio. Until then, be kind, be caring, be compassionate.